The coffee stain and the fake engagement. Some stories begin with a coffee stain. No one knows how they'll end. This is the story of Kongji and Choi Jae-hyun. Two people. Two different worlds. One accident. One lie. And an ending no one could predict. Chapter 1. First day and the accident. Kongjae's heart was racing as she walked through Seoul's crowded streets. She was 26 years old, and today was the most important day of her life. Her first day at work. Seoul Dynamics Group. One of the city's most prestigious companies. A place where thousands applied but only the chosen few could enter. And Jie was one of the chosen. At least that's what she thought. Before leaving her small apartment, she had looked at herself in the mirror. A simple blazer, an old but clean blouse her mother had bought her. A tie she adjusted with trembling hands. Everything will be fine, she whispered to herself. Just stay calm. Smile. Make a good impression. But she didn't know. She didn't know that her life would completely change that day, with one moment of carelessness. The Seoul Dynamics building stretched toward the sky. 47 floors of glass and steel. The morning sun sparkled on the glass surfaces, making Jie squint. When she entered, cold air greeted her. The lobby was magnificent. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, everything perfect and sterile. The woman at reception gave her a cold look. Her makeup was flawless, her hair arranged to perfection. Human Resources, 12th floor, she said without smiling. Jie thanked her and walked to the elevator. She held a coffee in her hand, one she'd grabbed in a rush that morning, never finding time to drink. In her other hand were files, pens, notebooks. She was trying to look organized, but inside she was a storm. Calm down, she told herself. It's just the first day. Everyone's nervous on their first day. The elevator door opened. 12th floor. Jie stepped inside and pressed the button. As the doors were about to close, a hand slipped between them. A dark-colored, expensive-looking watch. The doors opened again. And in that moment Jie's world turned upside down. The man who entered was the most striking yet coldest person Jie had ever seen in her life. A charcoal gray suit fit his body perfectly. Broad shoulders, upright posture, sharp jawline. His hair was slicked back, not a single strand out of place. But his eyes were dark brown and ice cold. He was on the phone. His voice was deep, sharp, and commanding. No. Unacceptable. Renegotiate the contract. Tell them if they accept my terms we continue. If not, we'll find other partners. Jie instinctively tried to step back. She wanted to make herself small. This man was different. His aura was different. It was as if he was absorbing all the oxygen in the room. The man entered, pressed a button without looking at her. 40th floor. The top floor. The elevator began to move. The silence was heavy. Jie tried to breathe but her lungs weren't getting enough air. The man was still on the phone, cold and distant. And then it happened. The elevator stopped suddenly. Maybe a malfunction, maybe just a normal stop. But Jie was unprepared. She lost her balance. Coffee. The coffee slipped from her hand. As if in slow motion it spun through the air, the brown liquid splashing in waves. And then, it spilled on the man's white shirt. A brown stain spread down from his chest, the full length of his torso. Time froze. Jie stared, frozen. Her mouth open, eyes wide, forgetting to breathe. The man slowly hung up his phone. He looked at his shirt. The coffee stain continued to spread. Then he turned to Jie. His eyes were expressionless. Nothing. No anger, no surprise, just a cold, empty gaze. And that expressionlessness was far more terrifying than anger. Who are you? His voice was low and cold. Each word sharp as a knife, slow and deliberate. Jie's mouth went dry. Her tongue was stuck. Words wouldn't come. I'm so sorry, she finally said, her voice cracking. I'm new. It's my first day. She was stuttering. Her hands were shaking. She tried to pull tissues from her bag, but her hands were shaking so badly that the bag fell to the floor. Its contents scattered everywhere. I'll clean it. Please, I'm so sorry. It was an accident. She dropped to the floor, trying to gather the files, the pens. But everything kept slipping from her hands. The man didn't move at all. He just watched. From above, cold and distant. The elevator door opened. 12th floor. When Jie looked up, there were at least 10 people around, all frozen, staring in shock. Whispers began. Did she just spill coffee on the CEO? My God. On her first day. She's done. Definitely done. CEO? Fez's stomach turned. The world spun. This man was the CEO? The company's CEO? Choi Jae-hyun? No. Oh. The man turned back to the elevator to go to the 40th floor. But before leaving, he turned to his secretary beside him. Name. Department. Find out everything. His voice was still cold. It was as if he felt nothing. As if Jie wasn't even worth the dust. The elevator doors closed. And Jie remained there. On the floor. Collapsed. Around her whispers, stares, judgment. And all she could think was, my life is over. Chapter 2. Call to the 40th floor. An hour passed. Maybe less. Maybe more. Jie had lost track of time. She sat in the Human Resources office. A small, poorly ventilated room. The HR manager sat across from her, hands on the desk, a sorry expression on his face. Miss Kong, he said, shaking his head. This is really a very unfortunate beginning. I'm sorry, Jie said. Her voice was still trembling. Her eyes were red, but she hadn't cried. She couldn't cry. Not here. It was an accident. Please, I would never. CEO Choi, the HR manager said, cutting Jie off, is a very particular person. He's obsessed with details. Order and perfection are everything to him. He paused. And that shirt probably costs thousands of dollars. Fez's world spun. Thousands of dollars? That was 6 months of her rent. Maybe more. I can pay, she said, but her voice wasn't convincing. You can deduct it from my salary. In installments. Please, The phone rang. The HR manager answered. Yes. He listened. His face grew serious. His brows furrowed. Understood. I'll send her right away. He hung up and looked at Jie. There was sadness in his eyes. And something else. Fear? The CEO's office is calling. They want you to go up to the 40th floor. Fez's breath caught. The 40th floor, she whispered. The HR manager nodded. The CEO's private office. But why? What will he do? The HR manager shrugged. I don't know. But if you'll take some advice, stay calm. Apologize. And never, ever talk back to him. He paused. I'm sorry. Good luck. The elevator was rising again. But this time Jie was alone. And she was scared. Truly scared. Her heart was pounding wildly in her chest. She was struggling to breathe. Her hands were sweaty and cold. The floor numbers were changing. 15, 20, 25. Each ding was a hammer in her heart. Around her whispers, stares, judgment. And all she could think was, my life is over. Chapter 2. Call to the 40th floor. An hour passed. Maybe less. Maybe more. Jie had lost track of time. She sat in the Human Resources office. A small, poorly ventilated room. The HR manager sat across from her, hands on the desk, a sorry expression on his face. Miss Kong, he said, shaking his head. This is really a very unfortunate beginning. I'm sorry, Jie said. Her voice was still trembling. Her eyes were red, but she hadn't cried. She couldn't cry. Not here. It was an accident. Please, I would never. CEO Choi, the HR manager said, cutting Jie off, is a very particular person. He's obsessed with details. Order and perfection are everything to him. He paused. And that shirt probably costs thousands of dollars. Fez's world spun. Thousands of dollars? That was 6 months of her rent. Maybe more. I can pay, she said, but her voice wasn't convincing. You can deduct it from my salary. In installments. Please, The phone rang. The HR manager answered. Yes. He listened. His face grew serious. His brows furrowed. Understood. I'll send her right away. He hung up and looked at Jie. There was sadness in his eyes. And something else. Fear? The CEO's office is calling. They want you to go up to the 40th floor. Fez's breath caught. The 40th floor, she whispered. The HR manager nodded. The CEO's private office. But why? What will he do? The HR manager shrugged. I don't know. But if you'll take some advice, stay calm, apologize, and never ever talk back to him. He paused. I'm sorry. Good luck. The elevator was rising again. But this time Jie was alone. And she was scared. Truly scared. Her heart was pounding wildly in her chest. She was struggling to breathe. Her hands were sweaty and cold. The floor numbers were changing. 15, 20, 25. Each ding was a hammer in her heart. What will he do? She thought. Will he fire me? Sue me? 30, 35. Mom, my brother. The surgery money. 39. 40. The doors opened. The 40th floor was another world. When Jay stepped out, she held her breath. Glass walls. Everything was glass. The city's view stretched out beneath her feet. Skyscrapers, roads, tiny cars. Everything looked small and distant. Everything was minimal, cold, perfect. White walls, gray furniture, shiny floors. The secretary sat at her desk. A middle-aged woman, bespectacled, serious. She looked at Jie with a cold expression. Kong Jie. Yes. Fez's voice barely came out. The secretary pointed to a door. You may go in. Fez swallowed. Her throat was dry. Her legs were trembling. She walked to the door. Each step was like walking to the gallows. She placed her trembling hand on the handle and entered. The office was breathtaking. Enormous. Perhaps 10 times the size of Jess' apartment. Glass walls surrounded everything. The city, the gray sky, the clouds, all seemed to be beneath her feet. And in the center of the room behind his desk sat the man. Choi Jae-hyun. He had changed his shirt. Now he wore a black shirt. Still flawless. He didn't even look up. In his hand was a tablet reviewing documents. His fingers swiftly scrolled across the screen. The silence was heavy. He stood there not knowing what to do. Then the man spoke. Without looking up. Sit. He wasn't ordering. But his voice left no room for discussion. Jay sat in the chair. Leather chair, soft but cold. Her hands on her knees, trembling. She tried to breathe but had trouble swallowing the air. A minute passed. Maybe more. Silence. Only the sound of swiping on the man's tablet. Then the man looked up. His eyes locked onto it. Cold. Calculating. But there was something else. Curiosity? Assessment? Your name? Kong Jie, sir. On your first day, you spill coffee on the CEO. Pause. His eyes didn't move. This shirt costs $5,000. Fez's world spun. $5,000? $5,000? This was more money than she could pay even with a year's savings. I'll pay, she said, her voice trembling. Tears were gathering in her eyes but not falling. Please, I can't lose this job. My family needs me. My mother is sick. My brother is in school. Your problems don't concern me. The man's voice was cold. Definitive. No room for discussion. Fez's heart stopped. It's over. Everything is over. But then the man continued. Actually. Pause. His eyes studied Jie. Assessed her. Maybe they do. Chapter 3, The Offer. Choi Jae-hyun stood up. Slowly, deliberately. He rose from his desk and walked to the window. Hands behind his back, he spoke while looking at the city. My company is in a sensitive period right now. His voice was low and controlled. The board wants me to live a stable life. To build a home. To get married. He paused. He looked at the city. Gray sky, rain clouds gathering. According to them, a single CEO is unreliable. Unstable. Emotionally immature. Jay listened, confused. What did this have to do with her? What does this have to do with me, sir? The man turned. Slowly. His eyes fixed on Jie. And in that moment Jie saw something in his eyes. Calculation. Planning. Cold logic. For 1 month. You will be my fiancé. Time froze. Jie stared in disbelief. She couldn't believe her ears. She must have heard wrong. What? What did you say? 1 month. The man said, calm and cold as if discussing the weather. We'll just play a role. Meetings, family dinners, press appearances. He walked toward the desk, approached it. You will be my fiancé. We'll show this to the board, my family, the public. He paused. Right across from Jie. Then after 1 month we part ways. You get your money, I get my stability. Everyone wins. He leaned forward. And in return 200 million won. As breath caught. It was as if all the oxygen in the room had been sucked out. 200 million won. 200 million won. Her mother's surgery. Her brother's university expenses. Debts. Rent. Everything. Everything would be solved. In an instant. But why me? Jie asked, her voice trembling. Why are you choosing me? Thousands of women. Because you're nobody. The man's voice was definitive. You're not known in the media. You have no social circle. Your family doesn't stand out. Nobody knows who you are. He paused. And because you owe me a $5,000 shirt, I can file a lawsuit for damages. We can go to court. You'll be paying for years. He smiled. But his smile wasn't warm. It was glacial. Or, you can accept this offer. 1 month. Just 1 month. Then you're free. F's world spun. Was this real? Was it a dream? A nightmare? What if I refuse? The man turned his back. Walked to his desk. Sat down. Termination. Lawsuit for damages. Legal fees. Debts. He looked at her. The choice is yours. F's hands clenched into fists. This wasn't fair. Not fair at all. But she had no choice. Her family. Her mother. Her brother. Okay. The word left her mouth. Hushed, barely audible. What did you say? Okay. Jie said louder this time. She fixed her eyes on the man's eyes. I accept. The man's face didn't change. But a small gleam appeared in his eyes. Satisfaction? Victory? He pulled a file from his desk. Thick, official looking. Good. Now the rules. He read without looking at Jie. 1. You will not tell anyone about this arrangement. Not even your family. Not even your friends. No one. 2. Real feelings are forbidden. No matter what, this is a business relationship. Professional. Cold. Just a role. 3. My stylist will determine your appearance, your clothes, your hairstyle, your makeup. You will simply comply. 4. You will report to me every day. Where you are, what you're doing, who you're talking to. 5. When I end this after 1 month, you will accept it quietly. No drama, no tears, no press statements. It just ends. Each rule pierced Jess' heart like a nail. But still she listened, because she had no choice. The man extended a fountain pen. Expensive, heavy, gold-colored. Sign. Jie took it in her hand. The pen was cold. Heavy. She brought the pen to the paper. A contract. Official. Full of legal jargon. But at the bottom was just one space. Signature. Jie took a breath. And signed. Shaky, crooked. But it was there. Etched into the paper. Permanent. Irreversible. The man took the paper. Examined it. Nodded. Good. He closed the file. Put it in his drawer. Tomorrow morning at 8 my stylist team will contact you. Comply with them. Do whatever they say. Jie nodded. You may go now. Jie stood up. Her legs were shaking. She struggled to stay balanced. She walked to the door. But before opening it, the man's voice was heard. Miss Kong. She turned. The man was looking at her. There was something small in his eyes. She couldn't tell what. This is just business. Don't forget. Don't let feelings get involved. Jie nodded. And walked out. The door closed. And Jie stood in the corridor. She couldn't breathe. What did she do? What did she just do? Chapter 4 Transformation and First Appearance. That night, Jie sat in her small apartment. The lights were off. Only the street lamp filtered through the window. The contract was on the table. She stared at it. As if it were alive. As if it were breathing. 1 month, she whispered to herself. Just 1 month. Her phone rang. On the screen, Mom. Jie took a deep breath. She answered. Tried to smile. Hello, Mom. Sweetheart. How was your first day? I'm so excited. Tell me. Jie closed her eyes. A tear slid down. It was great, Mom. Everything was perfect. A lie. Every word a lie. But there was nothing else she could do. Sweetheart, how was your first day? I'm so excited. Tell me. Jay closed her eyes. A tear slid down. It was great, Mom. Everything was perfect. A lie. Every word a lie. But there was nothing else she could do. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so happy. You know, the doctor called today. They scheduled the surgery. Next month. Fez's heart tightened. Next month. 200 million won. The surgery. Everything. That's wonderful, Mom, she said, her voice trembling. How are you? Are you tired? A little. But I'm fine. Don't worry. Okay, sweetheart. Get some rest. I love you. I love you too, Mom. The phone went silent. And Jay cried quietly. The next morning there was a knock at the door. Jay had overslept. Her eyes were swollen, her face pale. When she opened the door, 3 people stood before her. 2 women, 1 man. All stylish, glamorous, perfect. Kong-ji, said one of the women, smiling. Why, yes. We've come on Mr. Choi's orders. We're the styling team. Fez's eyes widened. And now? Yes. We need to start. We have a lot of work to do. They entered. They filled Jia's small apartment. Bags, boxes, makeup supplies, clothes. Please sit, said the woman, professional but warm in tone. I'm Minji. This is Daeun and Taeyong. We'll be working with you. He sat. Her head was spinning. Minji examined her hair. Looked at her face. Raised her eyebrows. Good foundation. But a lot of work needed. What will you do? We'll transform you, Minji said with a smile. You need to look like the CEO's fiancée now. And so it began. Hair was cut. Styled in waves. Not dyed but made to shine. Makeup. Light but elegant. Natural but flawless. Clothes. Dresses, shoes, bags. All expensive, all luxury. When Jie looked at herself in the mirror, she didn't recognize herself. Was this her? Her hair was wavy and shiny. Her makeup accentuated her face but was natural. The dress, powder blue, elegant, fit her body perfectly. Perfect, said Minji, satisfied. Mr. Choi will be very pleased. Fez's stomach churned. Is this me? She whispered. This is you, said Daeun with a smile. But a better version. Jay wasn't sure. She saw a stranger in the mirror. Beautiful. Elegant. But a stranger. An hour later, Jie was in front of the company. A luxury black car was waiting. The driver opened the door. Miss Kong, please. Fez swallowed. Got in. In the car sat Choi Jae-hyun, tablet in hand, reviewing documents. He didn't even look up. Your punctuality is good, Miss Kong. It's not punctuality, Jia said as she settled into the seat. Her voice was more determined than usual. It's fear. Fear of getting fired makes people arrive early. A silence. Then Jae-hyun looked up. His eyes swept over Jie, from her hair to her shoes. Slowly. Assessingly. For a moment, just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Approval? Surprise? But it passed immediately. Don't be ironic. This isn't a game. It needs to look real. I know, Jia said, her voice soft but firm. But this must be entertaining for you. Controlling people, assigning them roles. Jae-hyun's face didn't change at all, but his fingers gripped the tablet a bit tighter. After a while he only said, Control is what the weak make excuses about. Jay smiled. For the first time that day she truly smiled. Then we must all be a little weak. The air in the car grew heavier. Jae-hyun glanced at her sideways. A brief glance. But Jay noticed. The sound of the engine pierced the silence between them. Chapter 5. The first test family dinner. That evening. The Choi family mansion. Jay couldn't breathe as she got out of the car. The mansion was enormous. High walls, expansive garden, classical architecture. Everything smelled of old money. Are you ready? Jae-hyun asked. Jay looked at him. Even if I'm not, don't I have to look like I am? The man nodded. An unsatisfied smile appeared. That's it, you're learning. When they entered, a large dining room greeted them. Long table, crystal chandeliers, expensive dinnerware. and people seated at the table. His father Choi Dae-young, in his 60s with a heavy gaze, authoritative posture. His mother, a woman who had once been beautiful but now looked tired, quiet. And another woman, young, chic, beautiful. She didn't know who she was, but her gaze was sharp and judgmental. So you're finally introducing us to someone, Jae-hyun, his father said, his voice deep and cold. Jae-hyun wrapped his arm around J's waist. Jae tensed but didn't show it. Yes, father. Kung. She'll be my wife soon. Jae smiled. From memory perfectly. But behind that smile her heartbeat was like a storm. Sit, his mother said in a soft but distant voice. Jae sat. Jae-hyun beside her. The questions began. Where did you meet? Jae took a breath. Remembered her script. At a flower shop. I was buying orchids, so was he. We fought over the last orchid. Light laughter. But his father didn't smile. What does your family do? Jae's heart stopped. She'd been expecting this question, but she still felt unprepared. My mother is retired. My father passed away. We had a small business. What kind of business? A flower shop. Silence. The young woman, she would learn later. Jae-hyun's cousin Sumin raised her eyebrows. A flower shop? How interesting. Jae-hyun usually associates with more high-level circles. Poison. Every word was poison. But Jae smiled. Maybe that's why I'm different. Jae-hyun's hand pressed lightly on J's waist. Approval? Warning. Dinner continued. Every question a test. Every answer a performance. Jae played her role perfectly. Polite, humble but not submissive. But inside a storm was raging. After dinner, a brief walk in the garden. Jae-hyun and Jae alone. You did well, Jae-hyun said. Thank you. I guess. They stopped. Moonlight illuminated the garden. Your cousin didn't like me, Jae said. Sumin doesn't like anyone. Especially women who get more attention than her. Jae looked at him. Attention? Isn't this just a role? Jae-hyun turned to her. His eyes gleamed in the darkness. Yes, a role. But there was something in his voice. A hesitation. Are you a bit too cold? Or is this just special for me? Jae asked. Jae-hyun's voice was almost a whisper. Emotions ruin professionalism. What about humanity? Humanity is weakness. Jae turned to him. Looked at him silently for a long moment. Then I hope I'm never professional. Another brief silence in the car. Jae-hyun glanced at her sideways. It was momentary, almost imperceptible. But something cracked inside him. A warmth he wasn't used to. Chapter 6. The coffee ritual. Days turned into weeks. And somewhere along the way, something changed. It started small. One morning at the office. Jae was organizing documents at her new desk. They'd given her a small workspace now, just outside Jae-hyun's office. She was focused, sorting through files, when she heard footsteps. Jae-hyun entered through the door. In his hands, 2 coffee cups. He walked past her desk, then paused. Without a word, without looking at her, he placed 1 cup on her desk. Jae looked up, surprised. Jae-hyun cleared his throat. His voice was carefully neutral. I accidentally got 2. Jae bit back a smile. Of course you did. He continued walking to his office, but Jae could have sworn she saw the corner of his mouth twitch. She picked up the cup. It was still warm. And on the lid, a small heart drawing. Her fingers traced over it slowly. Was it the barista's work? Or had Jae-hyun specifically chosen this cup? She would never know. But for the first time in weeks, her chest felt warm. The next day, it happened again. Accidentally got 2. Jae-hyun said, the same neutral expression. Yeah, smiled. Your barista must be very generous. Apparently. The third day, Jae arrived early. She bought 2 coffees herself. When Jae-hyun arrived, she placed 1 on his desk. I accidentally got 2, she said, mimicking his tone perfectly. For the first time, Jae saw something break through that cold exterior. Jae-hyun's lips curved. Just slightly. Barely noticeable. But it was there. A real smile. And Jae's heart skipped a beat. The company had arranged a special interview. A feature for a business magazine about Seoul's most eligible bachelor finally settling down. Jae and Jaehyun sat side by side on a pristine white sofa. Floor-to-ceiling windows behind them showcased Seoul's skyline. The interviewer, a polished woman in her 40s, smiled warmly. So, she began. I think everyone wants to know, how did you two meet? Jae felt Jaehyun's hand find hers. His fingers were warm, his grip firm. It was all for show. She knew that. But her heart didn't seem to care. Jaehyun spoke first. His voice was smooth, confident. At a flower shop, actually. The interviewer leaned forward, intrigued. A flower shop? How romantic. It wasn't at first, Jaehyun continued. A slight smile played on his lips. We both wanted the last bouquet of white tulips. We argued. The interviewer laughed. And who won? She did. Jae turned to look at him, surprised. This wasn't part of the script they'd rehearsed. Jaehyun met her eyes. And for a moment, just a moment, the cameras, the interviewer, the entire room seemed to fade away. She always wins, he said quietly. The words were simple. But the way he said them, Jae's breath caught. What drew you to each other? The interviewer asked next. Jaehyun didn't hesitate. His eyes never left Jae's face. Her honesty. Jae's heart hammered in her chest. In my world, Jaehyun continued. Everyone has an agenda. Everyone wants something. Everyone is playing a game. He paused. But Jae, she's different. She says what she means. She doesn't pretend. She doesn't hide. His thumb traced a small circle on the back of her hand. That's rare. The interviewer practically melted. That's beautiful. And Miss Kong, what about you? What drew you to Mr. Choi? Yeah, swallowed. She was supposed to give a rehearsed answer. But looking at Jaehyun now, the words that came out were different. He makes me feel seen. The words were barely a whisper. Like I matter. Like I'm not just invisible. Jaehyun's grip on her hand tightened slightly. After the interview ended, after the cameras stopped rolling, they sat in silence. The crew packed up around them. But neither of them moved. You went off script, Jae finally said. So did you. A pause. Was any of it true? She asked quietly. Jaehyun turned to look at her. Really look at her. I don't know anymore, he admitted. And that terrified him more than he wanted to admit. The rain. 3 weeks into their arrangement. It was a Thursday. The office had been particularly busy. Jae stayed late, helping with a presentation. By the time she finished, it was past 8. When she stepped outside, rain was falling. Not a light drizzle. A downpour. And she had no umbrella. Of course, she muttered to herself. She pulled her blazer over her head and started walking toward the bus stop. She'd made it maybe 20 steps when a car pulled up beside her. The window rolled down. Jaehyun, get in. Jae kept walking. I'm fine. It's just rain. You'll get sick. I'll survive. Yeah. His voice was firmer now. Get in the car. She stopped. Turned to face him. Rain dripped down her face, her hair plastered to her forehead. Why do you care? She asked. I'm just a contract, remember? A business arrangement. Something flickered in Jaehyun's eyes. Just get in, he said quietly. Inside the car, silence reigned. The heater was on, warm air filling the space. The rain drummed steadily against the windows. Jae shivered slightly, her clothes damp. Without a word, Jaehyun shrugged off his suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders. You'll get cold, she protested weakly. I've fine. The jacket was warm. It smelled like him, expensive cologne and something else. Something uniquely Jaehyun. They drove in silence for a while. Then Jaehyun spoke. You did well today. At the office. Jae glanced at him, surprised. Thank you. I guess that's a compliment. You're professional. Efficient. Good at what you do. So emotionless? The word hung in the air. Jaehyun's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. No, he said quietly. Not emotionless. He paused, as if wrestling with something. That's not what I meant. Yeah, I did. You feel things, Jaehyun continued. Deeply. But you don't let it cloud your judgment. You don't let it make you weak. He glanced at her briefly before returning his eyes to the road. That's admirable. Yeah, it's just tightened. Being cold and being strong aren't the same thing, she said softly. I know. A beat. I'm learning that. They arrived at GA's apartment building. The rain had softened to a gentle patter. Thank you, GA said, reaching for the door handle. For the ride? Yeah. She paused, turned back. Jaehyun was looking at her. Really looking at her. In the dim light of the car, his eyes were soft. Vulnerable. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For what? For this. All of this. For putting you in this situation. Jae's heart ached. You gave me a choice. Did I? Really? She didn't answer. Because they both knew the truth. Good night, Mr. Choi, she said quietly. She stepped out into the rain. But before closing the door she added. For what it's worth. I don't regret it. Not entirely. And she was gone. Jaehyun sat in the car for a long time after. The rain continued to fall. And for the first time in years, Choi Jaehyun felt something he'd thought he'd buried long ago. Hope. The gala. The annual Seoul Business Gala. The city's elite gathered in a 5-star hotel ballroom. Crystal chandeliers, champagne, designer gowns and tailored tuxedos. GA stood in front of the mirror in the hotel suite. Her dress was stunning. Deep navy blue, elegant lines, it fit her perfectly. Her hair was styled in soft waves, her makeup subtle but radiant. Minji, the stylist, stepped back with a satisfied smile. Perfect. Mr. Choi won't be able to take his eyes off you. Ja, stomach flutteret nervously. It's just for show, she reminded herself. But her reflection in the mirror looked like someone else. Someone confident. Beautiful. Worthy of standing beside a man like Choi Jaehyun. When she stepped into the hotel lobby, Jaehyun was waiting. He stood by the entrance checking his phone, impeccable in a black tuxedo. Then he looked up. And froze for 3 full seconds. Choi Jaehyun. The man who prided himself on absolute control, forgot how to breathe. GA walked toward him, uncertain under his intense gaze. Is something wrong? She asked nervously. Is the dress okay? Jaehyun cleared his throat. Twice. You look. He stopped. Started again. The dress is appropriate. Appropriate? That was all he could manage? But GA noticed the way his eyes lingered. The way his jaw tightened slightly. The way he offered his arm just a fraction more gently than usual. Inside the ballroom, they were the center of attention. Whispers followed them everywhere. Is that really CEO Choi's fiancée? She's beautiful. I heard she's not from our circles. GA felt the weight of every stare, every judgment. Her hand trembled slightly where it rested on Jaehyun's arm. He must have felt it, because his other hand came to rest over hers. Warm. Steady. Reassuring. Breathe, he murmured, so only she could hear. You're doing fine. They're all staring. Let them. You have nothing to prove to them. She glanced up at him, surprised by the protective edge in his voice. They made their way through the crowd. Polite conversations. Fake smiles. Business talk. But every so often, GA would catch Jaehyun looking at her. Not at the crowd. Not at potential business partners. At her. Dinner was served at elegantly appointed tables. Soft jazz played in the background. GA and Jaehyun sat at the VIP table. Candlelight flickered between them. The conversation around them flowed. Business, politics, investments. But under the table, Jaehyun's hand found hers. It was unnecessary. No one could see under the table. But he held her hand anyway. His thumb traced slow circles on her palm. GA's heart raced. She knew she should pull away. Remind him of the rules. Keep the boundary clear. But she didn't. Instead, she squeezed his hand back. And when he glanced at her, surprised, she offered a small smile. His expression softened. For just a moment, they weren't CEO and fake fiancé. They were just 2 people. Later, they stepped onto the hotel terrace for air. The city lights sparkled below them. The night air was cool and crisp. Thank you, GA said quietly. For tonight. For making it easier. You did that yourself. You were perfect. I was terrified. Jaehyun turned to face her fully. You hide it well. I learned from the best, she said with a slight smile. He smiled back. A real smile. Not the polite, professional mask he wore for everyone else. Yeah. He stepped closer. The space between them felt electric. We should go back inside, Jie whispered. But neither of them moved. Jaehyun's hand came up, hesitant, and gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered against her cheek. This is dangerous, he said quietly. I know. We agreed. No real feelings. I know. His thumb traced her cheekbone. But I think I'm breaking that rule, he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. Jie's breath caught. Before she could respond, voices approached from inside. They stepped apart quickly. The moment shattered. But as they walked back into the ballroom, side by side, both knew something fundamental had shifted. The line between fake and real had blurred beyond recognition. Closing, the night after. Later that night, Jaehyun drove Jie home. The car ride was quiet. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was charged. Weighted with everything unsaid. When they arrived at her building, Jie reached for the door handle. Yeah. She turned back. Jaehyun was looking at her with an intensity that made her heart race. Tonight. He began then stopped, seeming to wrestle with the words. Tonight, when I looked at you, it wasn't for the cameras. It wasn't for anyone watching. He paused. I need you to know that. Jie's hand trembled on the door handle. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm tired of lying. Even to myself. The confession hung in the air between them. Gornilith, Yerian, Ja whispered. Not Mr. Choi. His first name. She saw his breath catch at the sound of it. She stepped out of the car and walked to her building. But at the door, she turned back. Jaehyun was still there, watching. Making sure she got inside safely. And in that moment, Jie knew. This wasn't fake anymore. Maybe it never had been. Chapter 7. The Truth Revealed. The next day, Jaehyun was in his office. His father's private assistant left a file. Your father asked me to give you this. Inside was a report about Jie. Everything about her past, her family. And at the bottom, the Kong family's debts were quietly settled by the Choi Foundation 2 months ago. Jaehyun's face froze. My father. Suddenly everything made sense. His father had placed Jie in his life. The coffee accident wasn't coincidence. Jie's hiring wasn't coincidence. The fake engagement was perhaps just a test. A game. His father's game. And he was a pawn. When Jie came to the office, Jaehyun was sitting at his desk. His eyes were dark. He threw the file onto the desk. Of course, he said mockingly. Everything was planned. Jie looked at the file. Her eyes widened. What are you talking about? My father paid off your debts. Before you even started working. He arranged for you to be assigned here. His eyes fixed on Jie. So you were chosen, weren't you, Jie? This wasn't coincidence. Nothing was coincidence. Jie's breath caught. I didn't know. Didn't you know, or did you choose not to know? I never lied to you. Jaehyun's voice was ice cold. Then tell me now. Which of us is more fake? You, me, or both of us? Jie's eyes filled with tears. I loved you, she said, her voice trembling. I didn't know, but at some point I stopped acting. You're still playing. Silence. Jaehyun couldn't answer. 'Cause he didn't know anymore either. Jae quietly closed the door, leaving behind only a shattered silence. Chapter 8. Separation. That night Jae packed her things. There wasn't much. A few clothes, small items. And the contract. That damned contract. She held it in her hand. Didn't read it. Just looked. 1 month, she whispered. You said just 1 month. But in 1 month she had loved a person, then been torn apart by that person. Her phone rang. Her mother. She didn't answer. Because she couldn't lie anymore. Early in the morning she was at the train station. She would go to Busan. Far away. From here, from this city, from that man. She was about to buy her ticket when she heard a voice behind her. Don't go. She turned. Jaehyun was there. In the rain. Soaked through. Don't go, he said again. We have nothing left to say. I didn't know. Jaehyun shouted. His voice cracked. What my father did. I didn't know any of it. But now I do. And I. He approached. With you everything was a game. But at some point I couldn't get out of that game. He raised his voice against the sound of rain. I truly loved you. Jay remained silent. Tears mixed with rain. I wish you had said that as your heart's desire, not as part of an arrangement. The train was coming. Jay took her steps. With each step she grew weaker, but she didn't look back. If she turned once she would stay, she knew that. Jaehyun stayed there. Just watched the receding lights of the train. His hands were empty, but it was as if he had lost his entire world. Even when the rain stopped, his eyes didn't. He said like a whisper, I truly loved you. But it was too late now. The words disappeared into the rain. Chapter 9. 1 year later. A year had passed. Jae now lived in Busan, running a small flower shop by the seaside. Every morning when she opened the shop, the smell of sea salt filled her. As she arranged new flowers with her hands, she felt peace in her heart. Perhaps the hurt had passed, but forgetting hadn't come. Sometimes when she sipped her morning coffee, when familiar classical music played on the radio, with the sound of waves, she felt a momentary emptiness. There was a name she once breathed in that emptiness, Jaehyun. But she no longer searched for him. Some farewells gained meaning when not returned to. In Seoul Dynamics Group had undergone a quiet but harsh change. Jaehyun was no longer the harsh leader of the board, but a quiet man settling accounts within himself. The rift with his father had been reflected to the public, and for the first time he had felt the weight of being human. In his cold office now, instead of files, a withered flower stood in the corner of the desk. The white orchid Jie had once brought him. Every morning when he looked at that orchid, the same sentence passed through him. Some things may wither, but their roots remain. One afternoon Jie was closing the flower shop shutter. Outside was a gray sky, wind coming from the sea. Just as she was about to close, a shadow appeared at the door. A dark coat, a simple posture. And when she heard that voice, her heart froze. Jie. She turned around. Time had left a more mature, more weary expression on his face. But his eyes were still the same. Broken but honest. I knew you'd be here, Jaehyun said quietly. A customer told me. Your flowers are famous everywhere now. Jie replied with a thin smile on her lips. It would be nice if stories spread, not names. They walked to the beach together. There was no rain, no anger. Just two people who had once hurt each other, now trying to heal in the same silence. I didn't come to ask you to forgive me, Jaehyun said. I just wanted you to know that I can still love you. I realize that love is sometimes not about possessing, but understanding. Jie remained silent for a while. She looked at the sea. I didn't forget you, she said. But forgiving you was harder than loving you again. And I think I can do both now. A wind blew. The silence was heavier than words but more sincere. That evening, neither of them said goodbye, because sometimes not saying goodbye left room for the future. As they walked together, Jie smiled slightly. Shall we have coffee? Jaehyun looked up. Tears shone in his eyes. As long as it doesn't spill this time, he said. They both laughed. Soft, broken but genuine laughter. Epilogue. 6 months later. Busan morning. The sea mist hadn't lifted yet, the sky was gray. Jie was placing a small table in front of the flower shop. Coffee in her cup, an old notebook beside her. On the cover a faded logo, Seoul Dynamics Group. She opened a page. The first sentence. Life sometimes begins with a coffee stain. She laughed at her own handwriting. Now when she remembered that day, she wasn't embarrassed. With that accident, that coffee, even that cold man. She had lost one version of herself but found another. Maybe that's why she was writing. Sometimes wrong beginnings lead to the right people. The door opened. The doorbell rang softly. Jaehyun stood at the door. A white orchid in his hand. No more suits. A simple gray sweater, a quiet expression. I'd like to buy a flower, he said. Jie smiled slightly. What kind? Something durable. That can live even with little water. Jie took the orchid, her hands no longer trembling. As she wrapped the flower, she asked, a farewell gift again? The man shook his head. No. This time it's a beginning gift. As the sun emerged from between the clouds, two silhouettes appeared in the window of the flower shop. Not too much distance between them, but no rush either. Maybe they would start over. Maybe they would just remain good friends. But it didn't matter anymore. Because both of them had grown. And the wind from the sea in that moment seemed to whisper. This time without spilling.